Hey everybody, and thank you for joining. My name is Nathan Matlock. I'm the PGY2 Oncology Pharmacy Resident at Monument Health Cancer Care Institute. Today for the Clinical Pearl, I'm going to be talking about bispecific antibody therapies that have come to market. The use of immunotherapy within the field of oncology has been a mainstay for many types of cancer today, but the search for a better antibody therapy has continued. That is what brings us to this bispecific antibody therapy. So why are we asking why? What would make these a better agent than current immunotherapy? This can be answered by their mechanism of action. Unlike current immunotherapy, which only target a single target, so for example, nivolumab targeting PDL, bispecific antibody therapy would target two different targets at the same time. In the oncology world, this can provide a higher binding specificity, which allows for the immune system to directly contact tumor cells and enhance cytotoxicity of the agent. Bispecific antibody therapy builds upon the basic structure of antibodies to generate new combinations and functionality. So IgG, for example, is made of two light chains and two heavy chains that form a typical Y-shaped protein we're used to seeing. So bispecific antibodies that contain the Fc region are found to be more stable, but typically result in a greater toxicity. Compared to those that do not contain the Fc region are smaller and less stable, thus a shorter half-life. Being smaller, they are more easily able to enter the tumor cell, but having a short half-life, these types of agents would need to be administered continuously. That leads us to think, well, what BiTE therapies are currently available? We have two agents as of this presentation, and they are blinatumomab or Blincyto or tebentafusp or Kemtrac. Blincyto was the first BiTE therapy approved for the use by the FDA. So here are some targets of bispecific B-cell recruiting antibodies. So CD19 and CD20 are targets for treatment of NHL. CD19 is target for treatment of acute lymphocytic leukemia. CD123, CD33, CLEC12A, WT1, and FLT3 are targets for treatment of acute myeloid leukemia. BCMA, CD38, and GPRC5D are targets for treatments of multiple myeloma. So Blincyto does carry two black box warnings for CRS, cytokine release syndrome, and neurotoxicity, and is part of the REMS program. The FDA approved Blincyto on December 4th, 2014, and it comes at a cost of $5,390.86 per 35 micrograms. It is indicated for MRD positive, CD19 positive ALL, or relapse refractory CD19 positive ALL. So Blincyto's dosing is pretty complicated and has a series of ramping up, if you will, and based on the timing and weight of the patient. You can see here 45 kilograms, excuse me, is the target where we think we need to make a baseline, say, okay, are they less than or are they greater than or equal to 45 when we're deciding a dose. I'm not going to read this all, but it is here for your information. So Blincyto, the mechanism of action, it's a bispecific T-cell engager, so that BiTE, which binds to CD19 positive B cells and CD3 on T cells. It activates endogenous T cells by connecting CD3 in the T cell receptor complex with CD19 on B cells, malignant and benign. This forms a cytolytic synapse between cytotoxic T cell and the cancer target B cell. Mediates the production of cytolytic proteins, release of inflammatory cytokines, and proliferation of T cells. This results in the lysis of CD19 positive cells. So administration for Blincyto, 24 or 48-hour infusions. Administer 240 milliliters as a continual IV infusion at a constant rate of 10 milliliters per hour for the first 24 hours. Of a 5 mil per hour for 48, or 5 mil per hour for 48 hours, depending on the dose and the concentration. It does need a dedicated lumen. You want to make sure you use a programmable, lockable, and non-elastomeric infusion pumps with an alarm. You want to make sure you use IV tubing that should be basically sterile, non-pyrogenic, low protein binding, and also have a 0.2 micron inline filter. Now, there is a 7-day infusion. It is not recommended in patients weighing less than 22 kilograms. You want to make sure you administer 100 milliliters as continual IV infusion at a constant rate of 0.6 milliliters per hour for 7 days through a dedicated lumen. Again, using the same sort of pump system and setup with alarm, and you do not use an inline filter for the 7-day infusion bag. The second agent, Kimmtrak, does have a black box warning for cytokine release syndrome. It was FDA approved on January 26, 2022. Acquisition cost is about $22,000 per 100 micrograms, and that's per 0.5 milliliters. Indications for use: uveal melanoma, unresectable or metastatic, HLA-A *0201. And then dosing: day 1, IV 20 micrograms, day 8, IV 30 micrograms, day 15, IV 68 micrograms, and then day 22 and beyond, IV 68 micrograms once weekly until disease progression or unacceptable toxicity. Mechanism for Kimmtrak: it is again a BiTE therapy. It consists of a soluble JLA-A *0201 restricted T cell receptor specific for GP100 peptide that's fused to an anti-CD3 single chain variable fragment. T cell receptor, basically it binds to a GP100 peptide presented by the HLA-A *0201 on the surface of uveal melanoma tumor cells. Once bound, recruitment and activation of polyclonal T cells through CD3, they release inflammatory cytokines and cytolytic proteins. This results in direct lysis of uveal melanoma tumor cells. Again, administration over 15 to 20 minutes for Kimmtrak, again via dedicated IV line, making sure you use a sterile, non-pyrogenic, low protein binding, and using a 0.2 micron inline filter. After the infusion, flush your line with appropriate volume of sterile normal saline. Allow this to come to room temp if it is refrigerated. Do not mix with other medications or administer other medications through the same line. This is stable for 4 hours, including the infusion time. So the timing is very important, and it is a very small window for our in-clinic patients. Administer the first 3 infusions in an inpatient setting due to that CRS. After the third, with no greater than or equal less than 2 hypertension grade 2 hypertension may be administered in an ambulatory care setting. Monitor at least for 16 hours after infusion for the first 3 infusions. So for us at Monument Health, we won't be starting patients currently on these agents. They would technically be started at a different facility that is capable of managing CRS. And you can see after the third, providing the patient has done well, they can then come to the Cancer Care Institute to finish up their additional therapies. So here are a few BiTE agents that are in current trials, for an example of what is coming down the pipeline. The Regen 1979 is an agent in phase 1 trials for relapse refractory lymphoma. The Regen 1979 targets CD3 and CD20. It was conducted in a population of 10 individuals and showed a 100% overall response and an 80% complete response. The AFM13CB NK is a combination agent that has AFM13 which targets CD and CD16A plus, including modified umbilical cord blood immune cells, so those NK cells. This is phase 1 study conducted with 30 participants with relapse refractory CD3 positive heavily pretreated lymphomas and showed an overall response rate of 90%. The AMG 420 is an agent that targets BCMA plus CD3. This is a phase 1 study, was conducted with 23 participants that had received at least 2 prior lines of therapy for treatment of multiple myeloma. The trial showed a response rate of 31% with 7 complete response and a duration of response of up to 7.5 months. So we can look for these coming down the line. Not quite sure when they'll be on the market, but they are here for your reference. And again, all the references I reviewed here for your review. And then so that just leaves me with questions. Of course, as always, my email is nmatlock@monument.health. And just please reach out if you have any questions, comments, or concerns. I'll be happy to answer those as quickly as possible. Appreciate it.